Okay, so it's the next day. I have the light back. I just want to do a regroup of what I did so far. This bike came with this 40-tooth Apex crankset on the front, and it came with an 11 to 42. I've replaced it with this 11 to 46. As we know, the adventure bikes that come from the factories aren't really geared for hills. I live in California, and you know, it's not unusual for me to do a fair amount of climbing, so with a loaded bike it would be nice to have a lower gear ratio, or gear inch I should say, gear ratio, gear inch. The point of doing this was, as a commuter bike, I could keep this on and still keep the benefit of my high gear while getting a better gear inch in general, so that when I go on my bike tours I don't have to mess with this at all. One thing I want to mention is this is called what's a BCD, which is bolt center diameter, and that's the spacing on these bolts on this crank. And as you can see, the crank can't really get any smaller because it'll interfere with the holes, so I think that's why it's restricted to 38, whereas this one is a lot smaller. And this one goes the other way, where this one only goes up to a 38, I believe. It goes down to like a 28, but only goes up to a 38, and this one goes into the 40s, I believe. So the idea is I would put this on, and SRAM only makes a 38 tooth on this, but I did see an aftermarket one on eBay that went up to a 40, and that would solve my problems in the sense that I could just swap this out. It's an aftermarket one. I wouldn't really use that on a tour, but for commuting around town I'd be fine with a 40 tooth from China. So the other issue to worry about is clearance on the against the chainstay here, because you have to make sure you hit the specifications of that. What I did is, as you saw, I installed the spacers, because this is a 68 mil bottom bracket. I think mountain bikes are 73. That's why they give you these spacers, and hopefully that will line up the chain ring back into position. And you really can't go too big, because what happens is once this is in position, if you get too large on the chain ring, it'll interfere with the chainstay. I think on the website it says what's the maximum crank I can use. Okay, so I installed the crank. The only thing I noticed is there's a little bit of a air gap here, but I think the air gap was present on the other one too, because if you look at it, you can see where it ended, and this really never made contact with the bearing, so I think I'm going to be okay. This will only give me, in this configuration, a top end gear inch of 79, down from 99 I think on the stock unit. I think when I put on the 40 tooth up here and back there, it gives me a top speed of I want to say 89, so there's always a compromise. This is the chain that I had. I'm going to take off 4 links from this chain, because according to my math, oh, first of all, I did put this chain on just to try it, but what was happening was the chain was so loose that you know, it wasn't extending the derailleur so that it stayed out of the way, so it actually needs to pull down, so you actually need the proper length chain. So I add one more tool to the kit as a chain link breaker, and I'm assuming that you should have one in your mobile kit anyway, so this is the Topeak one that I carry. So I'm going to use that 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives me the right kind of mating for the quick link. I'm going to break the chain here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll leave this one here, which is the kind I need. Go. Okay, so I've installed the chain, and while it shifts, I think that I took too many links out. I'm going to add, looks like I'll have to add, because of the way it has to work, I got to add like 2 links back in. I can't just add 1, I have to add 2. You can see this massive change in the derailleur just gets way too stressed. So I'm hoping if I add in the 2 links, it won't be as stretched. The problem is, though, it's going to cost me a new chain. I took her for a ride, and then I realized I'm such a dummy, because we have the B screw here, and that regulates how far the jockey wheel is from the cassette. And I turned the B screw 3 turns, and voila, the thing is shifting great. So here we go. Great, and then go up, go up, one more, and there you go. There's plenty of clearance on the jockey wheel, maybe even a little bit too much, and because I've got the looser chain on, I got quite a bit left on the play on the jockey wheel. The idea is when I go bike packing to have this rig for when I need to climb the hills, but then when I go on my regular commute I can go back to the 40 up front and these calculations were made with the 700C